I rubbed a butt today, and it was wonderful. Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Political Deep Dive After Dark. I'm David Valente. And let's bring in our crew. Dan, the man Fishman from People for Liberty. How you doing, sir?
What's up, man? That stone cold groove that plays at the beginning, just gets me in the mood to lay down the funk.
After Dark, baby. And from Illinois, Emily Hurley. Yeah.
Hello. Whose butt did you grab?
Some poorly departed pig.
Oh.
Squealy, yeah.
I was concerned for a moment.
Uh-oh. And
Napoleon.
Nuevo Mexico.
No ball.
Hey, Bear.
Doo-ba-doo.
Hi, Miss Kara.
Hey, Miss Emily. How are you?
Hey, guys.
Good. And there's Dan, right?
Yeah, Dan Fishman. So
hey,
we are.
Hey, goddess.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, I rubbed a butt today. It was a Boston butt is a pork shoulder.
I rubbed a butt. I liked it.
That's right. So it's sitting there, and as soon as we're done, I'm going up to smoke it. But I'm also going to leave here in a minute because it takes 12 hours to get that thing cooked. So I'm also going to leave in a minute to get my DoorDash. So.
Oh, well, it's 100 degrees here right now in Albuquerque at 7:32 p.m. And I just went out and watered my suffering peach tree. And in true Italian fashion, I made a chicken tortellini soup that was lemony and spicy and perfect for a hot day.
Oh, killing me.
Where did the spice come from?
Red pepper flake.
Nice.
And I needed to kick up the citrus in it a little bit, so I used some tagine.
Nice.
Interesting.
It was so good. Holy crap, that's a good soup.
My life was changed when I moved to Boston because growing up in Texas, I didn't really know any Italian people. And once I experienced Italian hot peppers, I'm like, man, where have you guys been all my life?
Where have you been? Mm-hmm.
Especially on a sandwich, in eggs. I put them everywhere.
New Mexican green chili is my favorite. I eat it every day. I eat some green chili every day.
I feel like this is the most amazing transition because we were going to talk about immigration a little bit. And just over 2 years ago, I was down in Deming, New Mexico, and drove.
Did you attend the duck races?
I was there on duck race weekend, which is astonishing. We didn't know it was duck race weekend. We were there because of the shelter that the people in Deming had set up for the Border Patrol had been taking people who were claiming asylum, which, the United States has to honor. Supposedly they have to honor, bringing them in. But to make it terrible, they were just dropping them off in the middle at the McDonald's in Deming at 2:00 in the morning. Nothing else, no contacts, something like that. The people of Deming, the first encounter they had was the local police car rolled up and it's like, why are there 30 people in this parking lot? And nobody there wanted to talk to the police. So he went and got the local priest who came out and spoke to them. And then sort of explained what happened, that they were given asylum. They'd actually seen a judge, but now they, had a year to live in the United States while they awaited their actual hearing. But they didn't know what to do or anything like that. Well, yeah. And so the people of Deming voluntarily, first they opened up the armory and they started taking care of them there. And then they opened up, they had a
arm the migrants.
Yeah. Well, they had a big shelter. And so they had 42 cots in there, and they started taking donations. They set up an Amazon wish list. People started, buying things. And the thing is that the things that people didn't have, essentially they didn't have anything for whatever reason. They take your shoelaces, they take your belts, towels, stuff like that. And so they started stockpiling all of those things, as well as food and stuff like that. And the people of Deming did all of this voluntarily. There's no government involved in it or anything like that. And then they took it sort of to the next level and they said, okay, we were supposed to go visit people. The good thing is that there's a Greyhound stop in Deming. And so they started taking up collections to put people on Greyhound buses to get to their relatives. And then they would give them sort of care packages for, okay, you know, if you're going to New York City by bus from Deming, that's a long trip. But, you know, it's going to be 5 days. And they would give them 5 days worth of supplies and other things. One of the most astonishing things, though, was that a lot of big corporations started to stand up. As you can imagine, you know, a lot of the people who come to the borders walk there. And so their shoes just have holes in them.
Yeah.
And Walmart just started donating. Now, I mean, it's like $7 shoes. The $7 shoes you can buy at Walmart, they're not necessarily the best shoes, but they're shoes. They don't have holes in them.
Without holes, yeah.
Exactly. And so they became a big plus. A lot of T-shirts, stuff like that. And it was really remarkable to see what people could do. And then, of course, after they started doing this great job and got all this motivated, Border Patrol is like, well, no, this is too nice. So now we're not going to dump these people here anymore. We're going to take them to another place. But
just out of spite, just because they could.
It certainly felt that way. I mean, this is, you know, the height of the Trump administration trying to discourage people from coming to the border in the first place. And this was, you know, they had these big caravans. And so I guess I could tell the first downer story early on.
Sure.
They had these big caravans of people, you know, who walk to the United States border. And then they come from, you know, as far away as South America. And we went over the border, the city right on the border is Columbus. And on the other side is Palomas. And we went into Palomas in the fire station. And the fire chief there was parking all of his fire engines outside so that people who were waiting could live in the garage. And, you know, as you can imagine, was swept spotless. And we went over there and we brought them coffee and milk and stuff like that. Just to talk to them. It was me, Pat Ford, and Tom Mann. And we did a radio show there, too. And somebody donated to the LP in order to give to people who are waiting at the border little pins of the Statue of Liberty. And my job was to go tell them, say, you know, we think you guys came all this way. We think you'd be wonderful Americans. The Libertarian Party wants to welcome you to the United States and wants you to wear this pin when you go to your interview to get into the country. So, and that person actually wanted to remain anonymous. So thanks. I know who you are. But it was a very nice gesture. So we met these people, 6 people living in the fire station. And they all stood out to me. 2 of them, one of them, the guy was an architect.
I'll be back, guys.
You got to go get your food?
Yep, food time.
Yeah, no, you don't need to hear the story anyway. Actually, I'm pretty sure Dave heard it already. But so one of them was an architect, and he was, you know, my age, 53. Not that I'm actually that old, but 53.
I'm 53 as well.
It's a really good age, right?
It's I don't know. I feel like everything's shifting.
Well, as somebody famous once said, getting old is terrible, but it's better than the alternative.
That's right.
So I'm talking to this guy. He's an architect, and my Spanish is terrible. So we had somebody translating. And he explained that he'd been an architect in Cuba and actually had a pretty good position, a pretty comfortable life. And I'm like, you know, why did you leave? I heard that if you were in the, you know, the good class in Cuba's a pretty nice place to be. He's like, it can be. He says, but this is my daughter. And he introduced me to his daughter. He's like, and a government official came by and said how beautiful she was and that they would go out on a date next week. So I felt like I had no alternative, but we had to flee the country. And so they went to Venezuela because apparently it's easier to go from one crazy country to another than from Cuba to anywhere else.
David and our grandmother is from Venezuela.
All right. Do you still have family there?
I have no idea. They are so secretive in my family.
Interesting.
No idea. None.
Interesting. Well, so they went to Venezuela and they joined a caravan that was walking from Venezuela to the United States. So from Venezuela to Colombia to Panama. And Colombia, there's this giant jungle that you go through to get into Panama. And it just incredibly thick and dense, and people got lost in the jungle. Like they stopped to go to the bathroom, something like that, and then they're just gone. They don't know where they went. And then they get to Panama, and they had to swim across the Panama Canal.
Yeah, I was wondering if they had footbridges.
Nope. I mean, they're not legally crossing, so they can't cross at the locks or anything else like that. But the canal is deep, and as you can imagine, if you are fleeing your home, never to return, you're going to bring valuables with you that you think you can exchange, like gold and silver and stuff like that, and maybe silverware.
Not so floaty.
Not so floaty, exactly. And if you're not a strong swimmer, you might think, "Oh, I'll just tie this to myself." It was tragic and terrible. And the people, when they told the story, they were crying about it.
Yeah.
And then, they come up through Central America, and, they are attacked by gangs, people with guns who say, okay, these 6 people are coming with us. And that happens. And then finally they get to a spot in Mexico where they say, okay, you're going to split up, and these people are going to Texas, and these people are going to New Mexico, these people are going to Arizona, and they all walk to the various border entries. And this guy, he said, so, maybe you can explain this to me. Like, I go to the border and I'm supposed to get a hearing claiming asylum, and I think I have a good case for asylum. I'm like, you have an excellent case for asylum. He's like, and I asked them, can I get in? And they say, not today, come back tomorrow. He's like, my circumstances haven't changed. So why does it make a difference if I come back today or tomorrow? And I'm like, I have no good answer for you. The best thing, and now it seems incredibly stupid, is I have this pin that's a gift from the Libertarian Party to you. And I hope that when you wear it in your interview, and of course, I don't know what happened to them afterwards. But it was, the people who are fleeing, the people who are crossing the border, it's not, I mean, there's certainly some people who are looking for a better life, but there's some people who are, really fleeing out of desperation. And it is it is a duty, right? I mean,
I agree with you. I don't understand why we can't treat people with humanity, and why we can't look at their circumstances and say, if they were willing to walk for 7 months to get here, and through horrendous conditions, why can't we offer them some shelter and some humanity? I don't understand that.
And the fundamental flaw, and it's interesting because, I do know libertarians who don't support the idea of completely open borders. I personally do, but I understand, some libertarians who say, well, everybody should come through a border checkpoint so that we can make sure that they're not bringing in a disease or, not terrible.
Because that's working so well right now legally. Like, great plan, guys.
I'm not saying that it makes that. But I understand the argument. There's a relatively famous libertarian named George Phillies based out of Boston, really smart guy. And he says, if you have open borders, unrestricted, China will absolutely put 100 million people on boats and ship them to California. And what happens then?
Fair point, but
but I would just rather say, well, let's deal with what happens, because right now the situation is also terrible. And so the one thing that I say all the time is that right now, what's happening at the border is, if nothing else, it's socialism. The definition of socialism is when the government controls the means of production. And people say, oh, socialism, social welfare. Social welfare has nothing to do with socialism. Socialism is very specifically the government controlling the means of production. Now, they do it to the idea that they're protecting the workers. And specifically what the government is doing. And Bernie Sanders, who actually is a socialist, this is why Bernie Sanders opposes open borders. He actually is different. He is more conservative on border control than most of the Democratic Party. And the reason why is because he recognizes that an influx of people drives down wages because people are going to take jobs. For me, if I run a company, I ought to be able to hire whoever I want to work at that company. The government has no right to interfere. When the government does control the economy by controlling the labor market, that's flat out socialism. And it's so weird to see people who say that they're conservatives or say that they're Donald Trump actually advocating for this incredibly socialistic policy. And it's because they don't really care. They just want authority.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
no, like best case scenario, it's ignorance.
Right.
I didn't have anything really to say. It was just that.
I do. Yeah, I think you're right that it is ignorance. It's that people don't understand that, that is the thing about it that's insidious about socialism in general, is that it does seem appealing in a lot of ways. And, trust me, as a computer scientist, I look at where the economy could be going, automation, and one man and a tractor and a computer can do the work of 1,000 hired hands in a farm 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. We are automating ourselves out of our economy. Someday machines are going to stand up and take the burden of work from us, which is going to be awesome, except that we live in a society where we expect people to define their value by the product of their labor. And so what happens when machines step up and they can do almost anything? I mean, there's a lot of restaurants who aren't going back to wait staff after COVID. They're going to scan and make your order and somebody will bring it to your table. And eventually it's going to be a machine that brings it to your table, and all sorts of things like that. There are robots doing surgery now because robots are actually better at telling the difference between dead and live tissue. And they're able to cut better than a human surgeon can. All of these
Listen,
things.
I just want Rosie the robot from the Jetsons. Like, come vacuum my house, Rosie.
Yeah.
I make Roombas for that.
Do you have a Roomba?
Fair point. No.
I can't recommend a Roomba enough, and I'm going to make a commercial plug here since it's not my show. People who are interested in buying a Roomba should check out woot.com. About every 3 or 4 months, they will sell refurbished Roombas for like $150.
There's a different one that I have my eye on that actually maps your house better. That I forget what brand it is, but it's on my Amazon wish list.
We have owned Roombas, and we have owned Roombas for, I don't know, probably 12 years now. And at one point in time, we tried to buy another brand that was called a Neato, which I thought, oh, look, it's a great name. It makes your house neat, etc. Boy, that thing was terrible. It was so bad compared to the Roomba that I thought the Roomba was, I'm happy to recommend them. And I'm even happier now that iRobot no longer has military contracts either. There was a while where they had a lot of military contracts. Yeah. And I mean, some of those things were cool. They make this robot pack dog that can carry.
Those things are fucking terrifying.
They are a little terrifying, but they're really cool. They attach to a soldier's belt with a little leash, and they just follow them around. They can step over anything. They're amazing, and they can hump a lot of stuff. Sorry. That sounds terrible. But humping.
See, now that's an area I don't believe in outsourcing. We shouldn't automate that.
We should not be outsourcing humping.
There is a time and a place for outsourcing, for automation. Listen, I'm lonely, Kara.
I just want to say, Emily, you make yourself look so nice for the show, and I just dragged myself in from the garden. I'm still wet from the sprinkler.
I just hopped out of the shower. I didn't put on any makeup. I don't look nice.
You look good, Emily.
Yeah, you look
yeah, tell me more.
So I call my Roomba my drunk housekeeper, because it just kind of wanders all over the place and just bumps into walls and furniture and just.
What does my niece think of it? What does my niece think of it?
She does not ride it like the shark cat. She basically she just hides from it.
Roborock. I did my research a while back. No, let's see. Amazon. Roborock. It maps houses like better than Roombas.
Yeah, mine just wanders all over the place. If you're like OCD about carpet patterns from vacuuming, do not get the Roomba. They're just all, yeah, there's no pattern.
I wish I had time in my day to be OCD about the vacuum lines in my carpet.
Yeah. I think about my times in college, and the carpet was never.
That's a prerequisite for a bachelor in college.
True, yeah.
A dirty carpet.
I mean, I actually think carpet is a terrible thing.
Yes.
You know, except for like in some situations where like the floor is just freezing cold, and even then, I'd rather have a big rug.
Slippers.
Yeah, slippers are good. I'm a big. Where am I? I'm a big fan of these sorts of slippers with the leather sole on the bottom and the sock.
Oh yeah.
Because like I can
wear
walk
them
outside
everywhere.
and have them. I mean, the fact that I have them close, that's how much I like those slippers.
I'm a Croc fan.
Huh?
I'll admit that I'm a Croc fan. I wear Crocs
Really?
in the house all the time. Yeah.
I don't own Crocs. I've never worn them. My understanding, do you put the little things inside them? Those
No.
are called pogs, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
What are their purpose? Just
Decoration.
plugging the holes?
Decoration.
Yeah,
Oh,
you stick
okay.
them in the holes and they're like decorative.
Okay.
I used to, when I worked in a NICU, I used to wear Quarks, which are kind of like Crocs, but they don't have the fashionable little holes like Crocs do. And they have a cork insert. And they are the most comfortable shoes that I've ever worn. You put them on and they just kind of suction onto your feet, and you can walk for hours in them.
Right. For hospital work, I know a lot of people. For people who don't know, NICU means neonatal intensive care unit.
Yep.
Interesting that we went from talking about the holes in the shoes of the people whom we turn away,
We've come all the way around full circle.
and now we're talking about
for us.
rich people's shoes. So
Good for us.
Well, I don't know.
Right.
Crocs are Crocs rich people's shoes?
yeah.
No,
Oh,
they're middle class at best.
yeah.
Okay. Well, comparatively speaking, how about that?
I think
Like not American rich, maybe, but third world rich.
Yeah.
maybe. I think the reason you see them a lot in the third world is because they are really easy and cheap. I mean, they're plastic, right? Are they plastic? Are they rubber?
I don't even know.
Rubber, I'd say.
Do
Yeah.
you see them in the third world?
I don't know. I see.
I've never visited, so
They're.
I live in New Mexico. That counts.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. Especially the reservation before the casino gaming opened there, like Isleta. Old Isleta before the casino gaming opened up was third world in the United
Well,
States.
much of the Navajo Nation doesn't have electricity or running water. And that's why COVID hit them so hard, because they didn't have resources with which to keep themselves well. And
They had to gather.
let's
to get
talk
water.
about more government mismanagement.
Yeah.
but that's sovereign.
Well, yeah. they
No.
are-
I meant like we put them in that position.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, no,
Okay.
sorry.
I'm
I
with
wasn't very clear there.
Speaking of bad, and I guess maybe it's my turn to be the downer. Now, the story coming out of Kamloops, BC, of a Catholic school on that was used
On
to
the reservation.
well, it wasn't on the reservation, but they were taking kids from like the Northern Territories and forcing them to live in this school
Oh.
and they found like 219 bodies buried at that school. Like these kids were treated like trash. The families didn't know what became of those kids. Even the ones that survived to graduate did not know what happened to those kids. Those kids just dispersed. And,
Hi, doggy.
absolute.
It's astonishing.
Yeah, those kids were treated like trash.
I
It happened in the United States too.
yeah, no. Well, I mean, there's, it's not funny. It's a recurring theme There's some amazing stories like that in Ireland as well, about women who were, taken to become sort of servants of the church, taken away from their families and stuff like that. And sadly, it's a recurring theme of, under the guise of being caring, actually being incredibly abusive.
Yeah.
Humans can be monsters.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's very true. Very, very true. I find it very hard sometimes to contain the sadness. When I watch the news, like, I don't know if this was something that was going to be on topic tonight, but the and you guys know I'm a Sanders Democrat. I am a liberal woman.
Yep. And
when I saw that the Republicans weren't even willing to honor the Capitol Police for their service on January 6th, not even honor them for their work and their sacrifice, much less vote for the investigation, I've just kind of given up hope on the right wing.
Just now?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's been a long time coming. It really has. It's been a long time coming, and I never had much. But this garbage about how the Democrats are the funded police party, which we're not. We're not. I mean, we'd like to see some reforms.
We are.
Yeah,
We're
no,
not.
it's like we can.
Well, okay, so but I.
No, you're right. They've lost all humanity.
What's that?
You're right. They've lost all humanity.
Yeah,
They've lost shame. They've lost humanity.
Justify their existence in front of Trump. That's all that it is.
Fealty to that man. Oh.
Well, it does point to the core of the reason. I can't see that, Dave.
What is it?
Deodorant? No.
It looks like
Some
deodorant.
Spice.
Old Spice sour gummies.
May
I need to go get my gummies.
But hopefully they don't taste like deodorant. They're Old Spice.
Right. May I interrupt for just a moment?
Please.
I think it's incredibly short-sighted at best for us to go on about, the evils of the right wing and how they've lost their humanity when the left wing is no better. And I'm sorry, Kara. I know that so many people. How? I'm sorry, but you're doing the same things, and not you.
In what way?
But if anything, children are in cages. How about that way?
I mean, that's the thing. There's still kids. The policies that Trump did are just renamed and given a shine, and kids.
The policies that Biden did back in the 90s. I mean, there's no redemption. There's none.
I think
I'm a believer in redemption myself.
Yeah,
but you have to be willing to try yourself. And learn. What?
Yes, of course you can redeem yourself, but through contrition and learning alone, I'm sorry, it's not enough when real human lives have been destroyed.
I think that what happens though, that you see an alternating pattern where the party in charge tries to implement their path to salvation. And this is sort of my argument for libertarianism, is that no matter what you do, it's not going to work because it's a one-size-fits-all solution. And we're not a one-size-fits-all group. I was talking with Larry Sharp on our Juneteenth broadcast, and he gave the libertarian plan for reparations. And first, he laid out the fact that clearly there is systemic racism. I don't think anybody can argue with that. And the problem that we're having with it is that originally, people tried to address systemic racism by blaming individual people, as opposed to actually blaming the system. And that's where people get defensive. And he made some very interesting points. He's like, I personally, this is Larry Sharp talking, and so I'm parroting him. But Larry said, I don't use the term white supremacy. I don't use the term white power. He's like, because I don't want to blame white people for that. No, the white person doesn't wake up and say, oh, I'm going to go use my privilege today to walk to the front of the line or anything like that. It happens. There is privilege. There is a group of people who believe it. He's like, but most people, if you accuse them of being a racist, they're unhappy. They don't like that. Do you know who are the people who aren't unhappy when you call them a racist? Actual racists. The people who say, yeah, I do believe there's a difference in the races and we shouldn't mingle them. Those are the people who are the actual enemies. You should at least be slightly encouraged when people say, oh, no, I'm not a racist, because they're at least I recognize the fact that being a racist is shameful. So,
well, yeah,
but we go back and we look at a great example of this is in 2008 in the presidential campaign, both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton said marriage is between a man and a woman. Now they are 8 years behind Dick Cheney, who I happen to know is the Antichrist, but Dick Cheney at least said that. He leaned forward. I saw the little marks on his head. He has his daughter or sister who is
his
daughter. Right. And so he's like, look, people should be able to marry whoever they want. And so how is Dick Cheney socially ahead? Here's what I think. I don't think he was. I think Hillary Clinton in 2008 was entirely in favor of marriage equality, but she thought she couldn't win the election if she said that.
I think you're
she
right
thought
about
that
that.
the LGBT community would vote for her no matter what. And so she figured, throw them under the bus because they'll come back.
And listen, I'm not going to make excuses for centrist Democrats ever. So, but I will say, I really think that Joe Biden could actually take a dump on the Constitution and be a better president than Trump was. I'm just going to say that. And I have a fun thing about Dick Cheney. My partner, Patrick, his dad went to high school with him and would beat him up on the regular for fun.
Not enough, apparently.
Exactly the reason why he invaded Iraq.
And you know what? Patrick said that.
We had I had an interesting conversation 2 days ago about fights at school and fights in the schoolyard and little kids. And I'm going to say this in a weird sort of context, and Emily, don't get offended. But we talked about my friend's point is like, children who are born with red hair are treated like they're unbelievably special because it's such an unusual thing. Like, oh my God, a redhead. Now, boys who are born with red hair are disabused of the notion that they are special on the playground in kindergarten. When some others are like, you're not special, Pop.
Well, I'm a brunette. This is dye.
Okay, fair enough. Well, good. So you won't be offended.
So I'm not offended, and I like redheads. I think they're cute.
And obviously, you can't generalize or anything like that. But it was a very interesting. So I'm, as you know, I used to be a special education teacher.
That's what I do for a living.
Gotcha. So I was a Skinner behavioralist. I truly believe that almost everything we do is based on behavior modification in our environment. We get reinforced for certain things. And that argument to me as to why children with red hair feel like they're special because everybody treats them like they're special, there's something to that. I'm just saying. But
well, it is true that if you're treated like you're special, you're going to believe that you're special.
Yes.
And so I work in a behavior program. It's called Social Emotional Support 2. It's the like the most restrictive environment. We have fencing around with lock gates, and it's a totally restricted program.
Yeah.
And key cards and all of that, and I work in a middle school, so it's very small class sizes. And my whole mission with my students is to tell them every day that they're special, because I want them to believe that they're capable and good, and that if you had an incident in elementary school that led you into this most restrictive environment, that shouldn't label you for the rest of your life. And you're bright and you're kind and I love you. And I tell that to my kids every day. And as a result, I haven't had any behaviors in my program in the one school year that I've worked there. Yeah, I can't say that there were no behaviors, but there was nothing.
You never felt threatened or anything like that?
No.
And there was a scenario like that.
Right. And there was a kid who cussed out one of our EAs, and it was actually a really funny story. So he had gone with me to pick up breakfast for the program. We walked together to the main campus, and I had just made this huge mistake the day before and was atoning for my sins. And I walked up, and the principal in front of my student chewed me out. Wow. And I just was calm, and I was, polite, and I took responsibility. And the kid, you could tell, and she just went on and on and on. And you could tell that the kid was absorbing all this. And so the next day, a couple days later, he had this incident with an EA. And so I had another EA take the other student out of the classroom, and I he wouldn't talk to me. He was embarrassed. He was very embarrassed and mortified, and he wouldn't talk. And I finally said, hey, I need some help with something. Can you help me do this? We went to the staff refrigerator, and I said, I've got all these milks from breakfast and lunch that no one's used, and I need to go through and throw out the ones that have expired. So he helped me do that, and I gave him a popsicle because it was a hot day, and I said, you worked really hard, and I thank you. And we went for a walk, and we spotted a baby bunny, and then we started to play tetherball, and I said, the other day you were with me and the principal yelled at me, and he was like, and he had said something to this EA about being a bitch. And I said, did I call her the B word? And he said, no. I said, do you think I wanted to? And he said, I wanted to. And I said, sometimes you have to know your audience, honey. You can't do it at work, you can't do it at school, and you can't do it to your mom and dad. Those are the three things you can't do. And I said, beyond that, you can say it with your friends and joke around, but you've got to know your audience. And I said, there's a fake pun I learned, and it's your free fake Latin lesson for the day. And that is, and I want you to repeat it after me, and he said non, and I said illegitimus, carborundium. And I said, do you know what that means? And he said, no. And I said, don't let the bastards grind you down. And he laughed, and he gave me a hug, and I never had a moment's trouble out of him for the rest of the school year. He was just a sweet boy. And those are my kids. They're sweet. They're boys. I don't have any girls yet in the program. They're sweet. They're often brilliant and completely misunderstood. And they got caught in a bad situation and cornered and acted out in a way that was violent. And they were elementary school kids when that happened, and they got labeled. Yeah. And so
Heather, I would say that, you said you can't do that in front of your parents, but Mom used to call me a son of a bitch sometimes.
Is it just
I loved it. Every time she did it, like...
Yeah. The irony being completely lost on Mom.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
But you were her favorite. Well, I would say you were her favorite, but we know who her favorite was. And it wasn't me. And
there's
you were
third sibling.
It was marginal too. You were the deuced.
The deuce.
She asked me one time, why do we call him Do? And I just said, it's more polite than shit.
That's funny.
Yeah. No, she loved you very much. But yeah, she was she was tough. She was really tough.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I think about as I think about making government smaller is having worked as a special education teacher. So I started off and I worked in a residential psychiatric hospital. So the kids that we got were bad.
Bounced from my class.
Yeah, my group was the first group I worked with was adolescent male sex offenders who have an incredibly high recidivism rate, and and obviously it's all cyclical. So they'd been abused themselves, and it was interesting because it was sort of explained to me the local school system has no idea. And this is 1988, 89 to 94. I'm at Meridell. And at that point in time, special education it wasn't there. Like, we were learning, we were getting better, but it wasn't there. And then, later on, when I moved to Massachusetts, I worked with severe autistic children. And these kids they were all going to be permanently institutionalized.
Oh my God.
But the question was, there's an enormous difference in an adult's life if they can go to the bathroom by themselves. And so we put a lot of effort into, and this is actually, we're talking about this. So using edible reinforcers and behavior modification is a very controversial topic in special education because it's incredibly powerful. And, you think about, at least for me, I think about all the time about how fucked up my eating patterns are. And, the thing that makes me the most ashamed of my life is my weight right now. But, I think about all this conditioning. How do we celebrate birthdays? We eat. How do we celebrate a promotion? We eat. All these things that, someday I'm going to win, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to beat all these things. Not today, because today I also rubbed a butt. But
God damn it! Why are y'all over there rubbing butts? I have a perfectly good butt. It needs to be rubbed.
I am staying out of this.
It's in the fridge.
But one of the things that I think about, though, is that no parent is truly prepared for a severely autistic child. And it does, I don't want to quote Hillary, say it takes a village, but it takes a community to invest in itself to be able to prepare. And special education is so much better now, especially for the autistic community, than it was 25 years ago. And I have a nephew who, was on the spectrum. And back when I was teaching, this is a kid who, we would hope that he would be able to live in a halfway house and, have a job working outdoors and, with a managed care. But now, no, he's going to 8th grade. He doesn't have an IEP anymore. Wow. It's unbelievable because special education is just so good. Early intervention, all these things that they've learned. And it could happen without government, but it didn't for hundreds of years. And so it is getting better. In the long run, I'd love to see a scenario where it didn't take government to do that. But even if it weren't required, I would happily be donating to my local school system, even though I have no kids.
Well, the problem is that there are some things that are just the public domain, and that's where government comes in. And education is a big part of that. Roads, bridges, libraries, all of those things. And we need to have, and this is, I have said until recently, I didn't really care which party. I want a pointy-headed bureaucrat running the show. Yeah. And, I don't think that exists in the Republican Party anymore. I think that there's going to be, well, that's just a whole other thing. But I don't believe in no government. I can understand the arguments for small government, but there are things that absolutely we must have government for. And I'm thinking right now about the Voting Rights Act and how states and these small governments with small minds are doing the best they can to limit voting rights. And this is a place where we need the federal government to step in and say, no, there's a floor. And it's the same thing with our social safety net. There's a floor through which no one should fall. And our Constitution guarantees that your basic human rights should be met. And one of those is your right to vote. And that's a big one. And so I
do have an issue with the current act. I can't remember what they did. But
which one?
I think it's HR1.
Okay.
But that one, mentions the word bipartisan like 46
Right.
times.
That's some bullshit.
And it says Democrats and Republicans a whole bunch of times throughout the legislature, basically just codifying
Right.
It's modifying the two-party system.
Yeah.
I understand your reluctance on that one, and that's certainly something that could be worked on, because I also believe in a robust field of choices.
Yeah.
I think we need a lot more choices,
And
we can't do that with the current system. We can't do it with the Electoral College. It's not doable. And that's unfortunate, but it's the truth. So if we can find a coalition of people who are interested in furthering the growth of multiple parties and multiple choices and multiple voices, and I'm among them. I'm not a libertarian, but I do believe that libertarians should have the same amount of ballot access as Democrats and Republicans. I think it's fundamentally unfair.
there is an interesting
That's a good point.
thanks, Tom. And it's a very good point. There is an interesting thing. So I'm what's called a minarchist, in that I do believe that there is a need for some form of government. And actually, I think most libertarians would agree that they would support a government that didn't govern by force, that didn't collect taxes by force, that didn't, require you to do things, with the exception of, obviously child abuse is not okay. Murder is not okay. We want laws to prevent those sorts of things. But like a lot of libertarians will say that the best libertarian presidential candidate would be one who said, I'm going to veto everything. If I'm for it, if I'm against it, I'm going to veto everything. So pass laws that 67% of Congress agrees upon. Because if you have 40% of people who are unhappy with the law, that's too many. Don't make a law about that.
Yeah, I'm going to respectfully disagree, because I think that this whole thing with 60 votes, a supermajority to pass anything, is just, it's not what was intended in the Constitution. It's certainly not productive in any way. And we can't have the minority.
I have said that we often create I've said this a lot this week. We often create the cudgel with which we are eventually beaten. You remove the filibuster. 2 years, well, not even 1 year from now, the Republicans take control of the House and Senate.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about removing the filibuster. I'm talking about make it a talking filibuster. Make it what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down with that.
Make Mitch McConnell stand up there for 40 hours and talk. I'd love to see that. I'd pay to see that. But it can't be that we give the party that is just their sole platform, their sole governing thought. They didn't have a platform, if you'll recall, last year at all. Their sole thing is just to keep the Democrats from succeeding or keeping progress from happening. I can't stomach it anymore. It's really frustrating. Infrastructure, that used to be a nonpartisan, yes, yes, a lot of pork went out, but it was jobs for communities that really needed them. It was retraining people into new technologies and new forms of work, and helping people advance themselves and fixing. I mean, God, how many bridges do you go over a day that you cross yourself before you go over them? There are things that have to be done. And
why by government? Why
government? Because it doesn't happen without. I mean, are you going to pay for the roads yourself?
Yes.
Really? Because you're opposed to taxes?
Well, we're already paying for roads. We're already
paying for roads, and then if we didn't have to pay taxes,
we're paying for bombs. We're not paying for roads.
Agreed.
Okay, yeah.
We shouldn't pay for bombs, but clearly we actually are paying for the roads. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, but the bridges are crumbling and the roads are falling apart. And
the bridges are crumbling.
Right.
But, it's an
which is
interesting thing that
why we shouldn't use the government, because they're doing exactly the wrong thing with our money.
Also, let me point out in my background. Okay, this is actually the skyline of Boston, and this is the Zakim Bridge that comes in from the north. It's the only way to get into Boston without paying a toll, because who lives north of Boston? That's where the rich people live. Okay, if you come in on the Mass Pike, there's a big toll. If you come in over the Tobin Bridge, there's a toll. All those other things. It's one of those things that it never ends up being distributed fairly. And for me, when you use government always has the best of intentions in the beginning, right? It's the noblest idea that we've had, the American experiment. No more kings. A government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But at one point in time, and I'll start off. I'll blame Alexander Hamilton to begin with.
Fuck that
this
dude.
idea that
dude, all the way off.
all the way off.
All the way, and when he fucks off there, continue to fuck.
Yes. But that that idea that once the government gets the power to do one good thing, somebody else starts saying, you know what? We can also do this other thing that, it's good for 60% of the people. And then, well, you know what? It's good for 55% of the people, but that will still allow us to win the next election.
And fast forward to 2020.
1%.
Wait.
All they're doing now is for the 1%.
Well, I mean,
that's how they've been doing. It really doesn't
Are
matter.
they?
It really doesn't matter the administration that's in power, the Congress that's in power. It doesn't really matter, how much people support a law. I've seen graphs where it doesn't matter how much their support for a law. It's basically what that 1% are funding the Congress people over. That's what gets passed. The higher
right.
the more likely it's going to get passed.
Right, and you're 100% right that most laws benefit the 1%. I have this saying that in the beginning, a corporation was a government construct so that businessmen could take a risk and not lose their house. In the beginning, government created the corporations so that people could make money. Now, corporations are creating the government so that they can make money.
Right.
And
exactly.
the problem is, you look at almost every law that gets passed, and it actually is protectionist to prevent people from impacting the wealth of the millionaires and billionaires. And
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I kind of
almost every law that is passed is actually passed to protect the wealth of millionaires and billionaires.
Yes.
And a great example of that is the $15 minimum wage. Because who's the biggest supporter of the $15 minimum wage? It's Walmart, because they know they can afford to pay it. But if you're running a small mom and pop organization, you can't afford to hire somebody else and so there's a great libertarian solution to this. Let me pitch this as well. Right now, if you want to hire one person to work for you, you have to do as much paperwork as Walmart does to hire one person. Now, Walmart.
Do you have to hand them the food stamp application as well?
You don't, because Walmart doesn't have to do that. But sorry, a little dark humor there. But the thing is that there is a way to fix that by getting government out of the way. Instead of a $15 minimum wage, let's just say no taxes on anybody who makes under $40,000 a year. Absolutely no taxes. Don't take anything out of their paycheck, anything else. But if you propose that, and I know because I did in Massachusetts, absolutely people go bullshit over it. No taxes. We can't have a culture where people aren't paying taxes, even if they're poor people. But in reality, if you worked 10 hours a day, if you worked for $10 an hour, 40 hours a week, and you took home $400 a week, that would make a big difference in your economy, as opposed to most people who are working $10 an hour and taking home, $300 a week.
Well, and back to something that you said, Dan, that government starts with the best of intentions, but it escalates because one person says, oh, I see this good and I think this is good, so I want to make the government do this good. And it snowballs to enforcing morality where you can't. And you did say something about we need laws to prevent certain crimes. And I'm going to nitpick over that. We need laws to I would say not prevent those crimes, but to yes.
Yeah.
I hate to use the word punish, but
remove criminals from society to prevent them from
right, because laws don't prevent crime.
Yeah,
no.
It's been shown statistically.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, there's an
Hasn't
economics. Go ahead.
I'm going to step in. My degree is in law. Yep. So, and I studied, I got my law degree not because I wanted to practice, because I don't, but because I wanted to understand why we do the things we do. And the criminal code is a very interesting thing. And I would say in large chunks, pretty outdated, but yes. We've got to have some law. I mean, it can't possibly be a free-for-all. I don't want to live through the purge. I don't want to. I probably wouldn't live through the purge, to be frank.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's advocating the purge, though. I think what we're talking about is removing the laws that cause the police to have confrontations with us, and for those laws that deal with crimes of life, liberty, and property. Mm-hmm. That if somebody tries to take your life, that's a violation. If somebody tries to take your property, that's a violation. Right. Those are the things that we want enforced. Not you put it. You got into a contractual relationship with a known prostitute, and now you got to go to jail. Although if you actually had filmed that, put it up on the internet, that's legal.
Sure. I know prostitution laws,
magic.
Sin laws are, that's just absurd. It really is. But sex work is real work. I understand. I know that, but I agree with you. Those are laws that are not good laws, that don't make any sense. And when you're trying to keep people from doing the things that come naturally, and we all use our bodies for work in one way or another. And sex work is real work. It's not for me.
To Emily's point that, there is, though, people who, truly with the best of intentions. I mean, I'm sure we don't have to go very far to find a lot of people who think that they are saving people by making prostitution illegal. Right. And they believe that they have an imperative. And I mean, some religions have this idea of being evangelists, that you are supposed to actively try to save people's souls. It is the highest commandment in their religion.
I just finished The Handmaid's Tale, so.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I'll say, Kara, I know that even though you and I disagree on most things, both of us hold our convictions out of good intentions. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a matter of where's the line that we're comfortable drawing between what we're willing to outsource to government to enforce.
Yeah.
Right.
Laws
so is your good intention worth the enforcing at the barrel of a gun?
And if nobody's ever watched the old PBS special Free to Choose with Milton Friedman, his first episode where he talked about the maximum government is that they want their projects judged on their intent rather than their results.
Okay.
And that's why government programs continue no matter how badly they perform, because the intent was good. At least to some people that pass the law, it's just like how our telephone bill still has rural television or telephone co-op, even though the entire country is wired for telephone. It never ended. It's why certain toll roads that have existed for years even though they've been paid for the intent of putting the tolls there was to pay for the road, they
Mhm.
never go away.
Right.
So, again, it's the intent, not judging it on the results, and then going on and funding it in perpetuity.
Well, there are a lot of things like that. Like, we are continually building planes and military equipment that the military doesn't use anymore because it is a jobs program. I hate to do this. It's 8:30 and I am reeking from the garden. I've got to go take a shower.
Oh, that's all good.
I was up super early today taking my last exam for my my official teaching license. I've been working on an off license. It was the special ed one, and I passed it with huge margins. So I'm really pleased.
Good job.
Yay! And
What
so,
was there?
yes. And day after tomorrow, I'm flying to Kansas City to see your nieces, who are begging me for you to come and see them.
Oh my
So
God,
I'm going to work on you for them.
I do. I really want to go see them so bad right
They
now.
need you. They need you. Marissa, call Marissa. She needs you. Anyway, I've got to go take a shower and spend some time with my partner. And so I'm going to do that. But I love you guys. It was a fabulous conversation. I want to do it again. Feel free to chat me up on Facebook.
Every Sunday night.
Awesome. See you later, Kara.
Oh, and
Take
by
care.
the way, Sunday nights, I really do my best to get here.
Oh yeah.
It's really the only day I get to be with my kids, and I rescheduled it this week. But they live with their dad, and their Sunday night is their best night for them. So by the time I'm getting done with dinner and the kids, you guys are gone.
Yeah.
So now that you've moved it up another half hour, it's going to make it a little easier for me.
Sounds
I
good.
love you guys. Have a great
See
day.
you more.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's talk about Democrats. No, I'm kidding. That's perfect, you do.
Screw the socialists.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I love you, Kara.
Oh my goodness. So
I do. She's so wonderful and sweet, and I get legitimately angry every time I talk to her.
But, it's such a wonderful opportunity to have people like that in your life because
Yes.
they're passionate and they've thought about where they are. And, it's clear that, she's pretty libertarian. I mean, obviously, you hang out with Dave for a while, some of that's going to rub off, tolerant of sex work, a lot of stuff.
the drug war,
Excuse me.
Ending military industrial complex. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, again, I always talk about the Bernie folks. Like, y'all, we agree on a lot. Like on the problems, absolutely. We identify the same problems they do. We're always talking about the problems they do. Our solutions are a little bit different.
Right.
A lot of bit different.
We're not calling for the same thing that caused the issues that we're all talking about. We want to get the dumb shit out of there,
Well, and so part of the question is, that it only comes back to one argument. What Emily identified, what are you willing to use force for? And, Tom Mann had a comment on that. I have a little speech. Laws require law enforcement, which injects force into our society. And so, every time you see us having a violent society, it's usually because of something that government did to put in there. And it's insane. What would I personally use force for to make somebody else help me do? Very little. There's very little that I would say, you know what? This bridge needs to get built. And so I'm going to go take a gun and force my neighbor to help me work on it. That's insane. So
because you put your gun down and then they have you.
Yeah, exactly. So what? Yeah, it's going to have to take three of us to take turn guarding that other guy. But I don't know. It's crazy. Preaching to the choir here. Well, I'm preaching to the choir and all the people who are watching the show. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
we got a good audience too. I see.
Yeah, we're pretty good audience tonight. Thanks everyone for tuning in. But it is we're an hour into this, and I've avoided this subject long enough. But I guess we should talk.
Do you have to? Must you?
The kerfuffle of New Hampshire.
I don't know what's happened.
Oh my god!
I purposely avoid it, and I know what happened. Oh Lord!
Yeah. I mean, I think we can make a very simple statement. Elections have consequences.
Yep.
I can tell you for years, Chris Crawford and I brought every person that we could to Massachusetts conventions to stop, what we feared was, a alt-right Republican takeover. And we succeeded, but we never let our guard down from pretty much 2016 on, because we always knew that was a possibility. And if it happened, we sort of took precautions along the way too, in terms of there were 8 or 9 of us who are financially supporting the party, and we always made sure that coming up to convention, budget was around 0. And then, if we elected the state committee that we wanted again, we'd put more money back into the party. But that was, part of our caution about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I do want to say for sure is that the data protections that were in place because of the CRM worked flawlessly. And, people are talking about this. The people who are complaining about it are either the Luddites or the people who don't want to see the party grow, because the CRM worked perfectly because nobody was able to destroy the data. And, that happens in corporations all the time, where somebody makes a mistake and huge amounts of resources are lost or destroyed or ransomwared or whatever. The LNC, using the CRM, backstops the states so that there is always a backup of your data. And I detailed this during the in a Facebook post, but anybody wants to ask me about it, I'm happy to answer the questions. If your data is in the CRM and it's safe, unless the entire LNC and the executive director and the operations director decided that you couldn't have access to your data, you would be able to get a copy of it. The correctly authorized person would. And here we actually have that. I'm willing to say that I think that, we had a rogue actor who did a thing that she was not authorized to. She might have believed that she was. I'm going to be charitable and say that, she thought that she was doing the right thing, something that she was entitled to do. But, that always happens. People always believe that they're entitled to do something.
Yeah.
But when that happened and everybody lost access to their data and all that other stuff, it was safe and it wasn't destroyed because the CRM backed it up. So that's my one statement about that. I think that's all there is to say. I mean, I think that, the chair resigning is unfortunate. I
thought it was premature.
Yeah, I do too. I think that I think the dissolution of the other caucus is, I always thought all the caucuses were a bad thing because it set us up to fight, with the exception of the radical caucus, because then we all gang up to fight them. But just kidding. I'm kidding. I love you guys. Except for you, Hogarth.
Hey, that's my regional delegate.
I'm totally kidding. Susan knows that I love her. The caucus wars. If there is a silver lining, I hope it's that the caucus wars are over. And I will say another thing that's, I think, interesting about this is that, it does make people sort of understand everything that's wrong with government, because this is just a microcosm of what happens with authority and trying to organize people in a manner that is a top-down hierarchy. And the LNC didn't want to be that, or it shouldn't be that.
And we didn't want any part of this. Like that, there was nobody sitting around on Saturday morning going, gosh, I wish your state fucks up. And ruins my next week and a half because, I just don't have enough to do. Like I spent so many hours on this complete bullshit for the last week and a half that I'm just like, I'm done. I'm tired.
Right. And fortunately, the one thing I'll say is that, thank goodness, you seeing these shooting stars behind me?
Yeah.
That's
Pretty cool.
crazy.
It's been going on the whole time.
I'm getting some good wishes out of this.
There you go.
Okay. It in many ways, it's fortunate that it happened during a down year, because can you imagine, like, if we had this sort of blow up leading up to a presidential campaign? What a nightmare that would be.
Well, I mean, stay tuned.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, I hope, like you, I hope the caucus wars are over. I don't know that they will. I know that there's still plenty of anger every which way but loose at this point.
Sure.
I was caught up in it too. I said some unfortunate things on the email list, and I take ownership of that. There was the move to unseat the secretary, which has at one point failed and is one point reanimated. It failed because the chair ruled it out of order.
How long, Mr. Parliamentarian, does somebody have to appeal a ruling of the chair?
I want to say 7 days.
All right, so it's still in that window.
Still in that window. There's lots of things that complicate the vote. That two people that voted on it are no longer on the LNC. The chair and
that part's a little crazy.
The Region 1 delegate. I don't know how the Region 1 alternate, who is now the delegate, will vote on the resubmission. But trying to get the next, replace the chair vote would be, that's the hard thing. I don't know that we can. Only the math is there.
I don't think it's worth the effort. Why replace the chair? I mean, leave the seat vacant for now.
Oh no, I mean, I'm just talking about Ken said that he's not going to vote on anything, and then you have to replace the chair who had voted yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I mean, the interesting thing, obviously, is that without the chair or any one person, there's now an even number, and so you could potentially have ties, and then, or no, I guess if the chair doesn't vote, it's not an even number, and so you won't have any ties.
Yeah,
no matter what.
And he's kind of made that promise, although he did vote on the budget item today. I think that was just more pro forma than anything,
right?
To get that email ballot passed.
Right. I mean,
sorry for the inside baseball, everybody. Didn't want to annoy everybody with inside LP baseball.
You're right. Well, let's see, how are our numbers doing now?
Still there.
Oh, so that's good. So sorry. So we talked about.
Where are you guys seeing this information?
Up in the top left corner. Although you may.
No,
I don't see it.
Well, and actually, I can't see it there. It's because I'm also logged in via the page. Oh, Tom with his terrible Bruins comment.
Yeah.
See, I'm going to make a comment right now, and then Dave will put it up on the screen.
All right, we'll put Tom's comment here.
No, don't put Tom's comment up there. Jesus. Yeah.
And boo. Boo. Hey, we'll see. How about that sliding save by
holy
Ryan Bullock last night?
That was amazing.
That was balls in both hands.
Yeah, I will say, Tom, hats off to your Islanders. That game was great. Now that's funny. See, that's the thing about Tom. He's really funny, but he is like old school New York ball busting. Oh
God, yes.
Yeah. They don't teach that level of ball busting anymore at the local schools, which is a shame. But I mean, at one point in time, when the Islanders beat the Bruins, I congratulated him because I thought, I don't want to give him the pleasure of my pain and suffering about the Bruins being knocked out.
Oh.
So I'm going to do everything that I can to be gracious about that.
We got a new candidate. Go live from chair.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that was an amazing save, and the way everybody recognizes that's the classic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the nice thing is that we can swear on this.
Yes.
So I want to say it was 2 years ago when the Bruins. It looked like the Bruins are going to be playing the Islanders, and I guess the Islanders, the Bruins got knocked out, and it didn't happen in round 2. And I sent a message to Tom on Messenger. I said, it looks like Bruins and Islanders are going to be facing off, coming soon. And he said, "This is a premature. Go fuck yourself."
See, I read the GFY is good for you. So,
Oh no. No.
Okay. God damn it, I'm too nice.
I mean, it depends on where it comes from. But in this case, right, this is a guy living in Albuquerque, I think still.
Yes.
And so, last I heard. And so in Albuquerque, GFY means go fuck yourself.
Okay.
Anyway, but it is, I tell you what, it's an exceptional hockey playoff. I'm not going to say that I'm rooting for the Islanders, but I don't want Tampa to win. So, and you know, I kind of would like to see the Canadians go through.
I haven't seen what the score is tonight yet, but I know it was 0-0 last I looked. But
right.
You know, I'm kind of excited. I mean, I love being able to rub in Canadians' faces that, you know, since 1993 we've had the Stanley Cup in the United States.
Right.
I'm like, you know, it's our cup now. You know.
Yeah. You know, I didn't even think about that, but I can get the game on in the background. Let's see. So, you know, I saw briefly. We should at least talk a little Juneteenth.
Yes.
Because I got this clip I posted on Facebook for people who follow me there. That was the perfect combination of Juneteenth and Father's Day. And it was Jamie Foxx talking about, he was in a Michael B. Jordan movie, which is on the Graham Norton show. And this is another thing. It's like the number of women who are thirsty for Michael B. Jordan is astonishing. And like there are Twitter posts about him. You know, Michael B. Jordan makes my uterus hurt. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's like, you know, I don't need Michael B. Jordan. I'll take Michael C. Jordan. It's good enough. Things like that. But so he made this amazing movie about a lawyer who was dedicated to exonerating people on death row.
Oh, yeah.
Jamie. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called right now. I'll let you look it up while I tell the story. But so Jamie Foxx plays.
I'm sorry, I clicked on his images. I'm out.
Michael B. Fox.
It's fucking gorgeous.
Okay. Yeah,
I didn't know who he is.
Now you see what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and did you see Black Panther?
Yeah.
So he's the bad guy in Black Panther.
Okay.
And so, like, I mean, that time when he's like super jacked and stuff like that, very the internet was pretty happy about his photos. Anyway, but so he made this amazing movie, and Jamie Foxx plays one of the convicts that he gets exonerated.
Just Mercy.
Just Mercy, right. And Jamie Foxx talked about the fact that his father, like growing up, his father was critically was there, present, really important in his life. And then when he was older, and I want to say like 18, his father was arrested for stealing a $25 television and sent to jail for 7 years. And it was very difficult for Jamie Foxx to deal with, you know, because this guy who had meant everything, when he talked about the fact that, you know, his father prepared him for everything, including like teaching him to play tennis. And he's like, you know, Dad, why are you teaching me to play tennis? He's like, I want you to know everything. And so, like, he talked about how Ilie Nastase was one of his role models, maybe not role model, but somebody he was following, aware of, stuff like that. And so when his father went to prison, he didn't really know how to deal with it, because he said, you know, this man had been like a king to me, and I didn't want to go see him in a place where he was going to be humbled and in this small thing. And so, you know, I wrote him this letter and I talked about it. And my life started to get more successful, and I said, you know, Dad, I can't come see you in prison. As like, it'll just break me. But here's what I got for you. I got your life for you when you got back. After this is done, my life is turning out. You're going to come and live with me, and I will treat you like the king that you are. And then for the rest of my life, for 25 years, my dad has lived with me. I gave him a black American Express card, that he can go out and do whatever the hell he wants every day. He's got a separate house, on the same property as mine, and everything I can do to give him. And I thought, what a wonderful combination of a Juneteenth and Father's Day story. So
Yeah.
it was really cool.
Yeah.
So
Happy Father's Day to all the good men and fathers out there.
I agree.
And I don't even get offended when women say, I'm a single mother. Who celebrate? Everyone should celebrate as much as they can.
That's a fascinating thing, because that was an interesting conversation about Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday. And
yeah,
first of all, it's a little bit bullshit, because so Juneteenth is really only the Texas celebration, and because Texas is big. But we had John Mons on the show, and he talked about the fact that in Georgia they celebrate May Day as the day that they earned. And he's like, so the federal government just told Georgia, no, don't celebrate it on May anymore. Celebrate it on June. And how stupid is it? I love the fact that it's called Juneteenth because of the ambiguity of the date, because it's sort of a tie back to our past. Now everything's June 13th at 2:47 and 13 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that it was, it was a little crazy. All right. Game on.
I got the game on. All right.
No, I'm going to get it up in the background.
So did you hear about the Daredevil that yeeted himself the other day?
That did what? Yeeted himself?
Yeeted himself from this corporeal plane.
Did not.
Hey,
what are you talking about?
Why should I be? I'm not laughing at this.
Yeah, you are. It's fun to laugh. So this guy, he's a daredevil, was trying to do the world's longest bike jump at a air show in Washington State, and apparently fell short of the landing zone and turfed himself into the dirt mound that he was supposed to land on. But this guy was like 28 years old when he did it, and he has a wife and 2 kids at home, including a newborn. Like,
yeah,
it's like, why are you so stupid? Why? I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, I get thrill seeking and stuff like that, but you've got so much to lose. It bothers me to think about just how much of a waste that was.
Yeah,
there's a whole lot of social commentary to be made there.
I think that there's a lot of people for whom, I mean, it's an interesting thing that we have this larger vision of heroic stuff happening in the world, and people feel like I have to do something to be seen, because they see all these other people who are being seen, and so finding a way to be seen becomes critical to a lot of people, especially people who aren't I don't want to say not living their best lives, but haven't had the affirmation of their lives, and so they're seeking it out through public commentary, something like that. That's my guess as to what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It just, gosh, I mean, we have so many people just chasing that, that 15 seconds of fame. Because now it's 15 seconds. The minutes have gone by quite fast now. So we're at seconds. You're only able to make your like a TikTok video to get your fame. And I remember when I was a kid, there were shows that celebrated like people doing like cool things. That's incredible. I don't know if you remember that show, Dan.
I do indeed, with Fran Tarkenton.
Fran Tarkenton, and
Kathy Crosby.
Yeah, Kathy Crosby. Yeah, it was a great show because it was like showing people doing like really cool things throughout the country. It was like highlighting like people doing, volunteer efforts. I mean, that show was on forever, and now we got like Jackass. We got Ow My Balls. I mean, that's what we've got now.
Kids these days. Well, I think we still do have some very positive influences. Like I see in the media, highlights of truly special people doing special things. So perhaps it's about what you look for. And I do think there's certainly merit to how heavily marketed everything is. And I mean, they're getting this down to a frightening science with neuromarketing. They're mapping brains now. So, that when you think a thought and then Facebook hears that thought and then markets to you, like, Jesus fucking Christ, it happened to me today.
Yeah, it happened to me too. I'm like,
get out of my head. But so there is some manipulation going on. But perhaps it is just what you look for. And maybe quit giving in to the clickbaits out there.
I really don't click on news online anymore. I'm just so tired of getting clickbaits, and it goes to like a slideshow or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see, Christina Hendricks in a bikini. I mean, that, I get tired of those clickbait ads because he's always at the very end. So.
It takes like 10 seconds.
But no, it's I don't know. Maybe because I do watch too much news. Sports is a great, kind of brain candy for me. But news, again, it's the whole axiom of if it leads, it leads. So yeah, you may get that nice human interest story at the very end that they dedicate like 7 seconds to. But, the entire hour of the news broadcast, they're talking about war, mayhem, people hating each other. And that was one of the things that I want to talk about when we're talking about, Democrats versus Republicans, is that we continue to divide ourselves. And it happens in the Libertarian Party. We're talking about the caucus wars. We continue to divide ourselves into smaller and smaller groups. And then we say, hate them because they have what you don't.
Right.
And that's
tribalism in a modern setting.
Yeah. So that, people,
that's very well said.
Has learned how to monetize that, has learned how to use that to entrench their power. Because it's like the old British divide and conquer. You keep the masses at each other's throats so that they don't have time to focus on what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
And
it goes to the point that the only solution to that, because we've shown over and over again that leaders will figure out how to manipulate the system to justify what they're doing via a democratic process. The only way to do that is the libertarian solution to depower government.
Yeah.
Empower people by depowering government. Our end game is a government that has so little power that people won't fight for it. They'll, serve out of a sense of obligation rather than, the idea that it's a path to millions.
Yeah, which it has been. And that's, especially for corporations, because, it's better than playing the stock market. You open up a stock option that you buy like the right 5 senators.
Right.
For $40,000 donation, you're going to reap millions.
If you were a corporation, it would be fiscally irresponsible. It would be negligence to not spend money on lobbying.
Yep.
Because it's so important. One of the, and so this actually full circle talked us about special education. So the company I worked for, eSped, we were the 800-pound gorilla of special education software. We had every school district in Massachusetts except for Boston and Worcester, which are the 2 largest communities, Boston, Worcester, and Springfield. And at one point in time, we were invited to go down and bid for Philadelphia's contract. Philadelphia, I think it's the 5th biggest city now in the country. But it was a $1 million a year contract, which is big money for us. Big money. It was big money for us. And the CTO is like, I don't even know why we're going. It's a waste of time. I'm like, well, why do you say that? He's like, because if it's $1 million contract, the merits of the software are going to have nothing to do with who gets the contract. It's about who knows somebody that, wrote the software, a cousin, something like that. It's about political net connections. It has nothing to do with it. And sure enough, we went down there. So we went down there for the demo. It was us and 3 other companies. And whoever we were interviewing with, it was school board people, they had put the previous proposals in the trash can. And like, I'm a naturally sneaky person. I fished them out and I read the other proposals. All the other proposals were vaporware. And for those of you who don't know, vaporware is software yet to be written. It's just an idea. We had a working product in the market in Philadelphia right then. And as we talked to them, it was clear we were doing stuff that the other companies weren't able to do, like other forms like a 504 and an ER, stuff like that. Plus, we're Massachusetts. Massachusetts is the best state in special education. There's just no question about it. You can actually get a national certification as a special education teacher that is good in 49 states, but it's not up to Mass. It won't work in Massachusetts because the standards are too low for the rest of the country. So we went there and we clearly had the best product. We could turn them on in literally a month. The other products hadn't been written and we didn't get it because it was political. And then when we got back, the company that had the Boston contract kept trying to break into other places, but we had a lock in Massachusetts. And so they started lobbying to get the Boston used product to become the state product. And then website would be run by the state and they would do all special education to that. And so, our company that was actively trying to actively making special education better now had to spend money on lobbying, which is crazy, right? And it's especially crazy because, we're a company that ran with relatively lean margins. Very interesting for me to see, it was a small company, 7 developers, about the same number of customer support, a few salespeople, but, made like $30 million a year. And all of our, and for me, having come from startup, I never even thought that I would ever work for a company like that. I'm like, oh, how am I going to work for, a company that sells something? That's crazy. I only want to do internet cool stuff. But it was, it was eye-opening. And then to sort of see that now this company that had been very profitable had to devote, $500,000 a year to pay for lobbying to defend itself from the government making a law, making what they did illegal. It's insane. Just completely insane. That's my rant.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's been so frustrating to watch. I hear a lot of people talk about the, Citizens United decision and all that stuff, and campaign finance reform. And I continue to tell people that you're not going to get the money out of politics until you get the money out of government, because it's just a big pot there. We're throwing trillions and they're printing trillions as well. So there's no, there's no control over the amount of money that is in the government right now. It's valueless, but I mean, they continue to print it. And it's that pot of gold that corporations, especially military industrial complex, love to go after.
So when do you think we're going to have an economic crash? Just out of curiosity, how many years do we got?
I don't know, because I would have thought we would have had them before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I look at 2008, and I can't. I was very fortunate to be in a good situation financially in 2008, and so the ability to buy a lot of stock at a third of what its value was enormous. The Dow Jones went down to 7,000, right? That's only 13 years ago. You can imagine. I mean, what's it? Are we running? We're over 30 now, right?
We're over 30.
Yeah, and so a 400% profit in 13 years isn't a bad way to.
Don't tell me that, Tom.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
Well,
don't.
but
no. Don't tell me that, Tom.
Are you?
Jesus.
Oh no! What happened again tonight?
Do I look?
Oh boy!
Did I look?
Let's see. I mean, I'm hoping that he means like actually the shit
Like
literally hit the
fallen
fan.
or something like that.
Maybe something like literally, like somebody took a dump and threw it at a fan, as they did in the movie Airplane.
Bless these people for still talking about Tom Woods.
Yeah. Emily, what's shaking in Decatur?
It's hot. It's muggy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
Mm.
So, well, let's talk a little work experience. You're down at Lowe's.
Mhm.
I have heard that lumber is getting a little easier to come by now. Are you hearing that at all?
No, quite the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, I'm hearing that lumber is still going to be going up, and I don't think I can tell you that.
Sure, you can. You just heard
I don't know.
You heard it at the diner.
Yeah, I just heard it. I also heard at the diner that prices of appliances are going to be going up even more.
Right. I mean, well, the semiconductor shortage is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and something with the new strain of COVID going through the south side of China now.
Yeah.
So it's really going to impact shipping again.
That's a weird thing. I have a third car. I've said this before. My midlife crisis was a sports car. I won't apologize for it. There are many, many, many worse midlife crises for me to have. But the other day, I'm like, I see the used car market is crazy right now. I'm like, we should sell it. I don't drive the Infinity anymore. I drive my truck everywhere. Well, I was like, no, it's a car. It's special to you. When you got it, you were so happy. She's like, let's keep it. I'm like, all right. But I mean, just sitting there in my garage with a trickle charger connected to the battery. So I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting to think about, will the shortages give an advantage will they change the American economy enough that we'll start making more things here because we can? The ability to turn around some manufacturing.
That would be incredible.
It would be incredible.
You're asking about when does this fall apart? It's very scary now when you think about it. Inflation's going to hit at some point.
It's already hitting.
Yeah, I mean, it is already hitting, but I mean, like, this is
like we're talking scary, like
hyper.
It's cheaper to burn your money than it is to use it.
Toilet paper.
Yeah.
So I think we're much closer to that than we think, because the thing is that it's very cyclical. The dollar's not going to buy anything, so you're going to hear more people calling about $30 minimum wage, $40 minimum wage. The price of basic staples are going to continue to go up and up and up, and people's incomes are just not going to be able to keep up. And the income is always that lagging indicator.
We just keep raising the minimum wage.
Yeah, that's going to work. That's going to work. How long does that dog chase its tail? It's going to get to the point where it's like Weimar Germany. That I've got stamps from Weimar Germany that have million marks printed on them because they couldn't print stamps fast enough. They just overstamped the stamp,
right,
to be that whatever devalued it was that day. I mean, 100 million mark postage stamps, which in that day were less than a penny. I mean,
do you know the Tennessee Ernie Ford song? You load 16 tons. What do you get?
Another day older and deeper in debt. Yeah.
Deeper in debt. I've often thought about the fact that, you used to say, oh, how's it going? Oh, another day, another dollar. Before credit, right? You could only get so poor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now, the fact that you can sort of
go
into debt, your ability, your capacity, it devalues the currency even more. Since we're going to do esoteric rants, let's talk fractional reserve lending, because that's insane, right? The idea that banks just get to manufacture money, like not even the Fed, but just the get get rid of a lot of inflation by saying, okay, no more fractional reserve. But and what would happen? That would friggin' crush things.
Ooh, screaming.
Huh?
They would be screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. Well, so at the risk of offending other people, so my people know about money lending. And
Racist. Oh, wait.
money lending is supposed to have risks, but you should at least have the money that you're lending somebody. And, the Federal Reserve, whatever, but the idea that they've given this ability to banks to say they only have to have 10% in their in-house of the actual loans that they give out, that ought to be petrifying to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see here. Your money's not in the bank. It's over in George's house, and it's in Mary. Sorry. That's my Jimmy Stewart.
There you go.
My favorite. I swear to God, I'd marry Jimmy Stewart if he were alive. Oh, love that. Anyway, my edible's kicking in. I should probably not be on anymore.
That's all right. He fought in World War II, right? He was a pilot.
Yeah, and won an award for bravery, I think, too.
It's an interesting comment. I mean, I don't want to worship soldiers, heroes, stuff like that, but the idea of like everybody pitching in to do their share,
right?
And
and I mean, I think it's generally agreed that ending a force that is out purely for world domination, like.
Right.
Yeah. Let's pitch in against that.
We don't have to say the Nazis were bad. Nazis were bad. They were worth fighting against.
Yeah.
It is a.
Vegas won. It was an overtime game. 1-1 going in. I guess that would make the score 2-1.
Why does Vegas even have a team? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
The NHL was the smartest league in the world for putting a team in Vegas because there was no reason for that city to not have a team.
But no, there is a really good reason. First of all, there's no water, and secondly, it doesn't freeze. So why do you have a hockey team?
But you know what? The first outdoor game ever was played in Caesars Palace parking lot in Las Vegas. Los Angeles versus New York Rangers. It was a preseason game in September, and they were able to make it work. Outdoors.
The first,
like 1994. Yeah,
you're saying like the first Winter Classic, first NHL, but there have been outdoor hockey games before that.
Oh no, I'm like the first NHL outdoor hockey game.
Right, and I'm gonna guess it's in the modern era because I got to think in the 20s, people are playing outdoors. I don't know though.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the game had been professionalized by the time it got into the into the NHL era, which was 1917. So I think all of them were in buildings at that point.
I don't know. I think that I don't mind Vegas having a football team. That's okay, but a hockey team in the desert where it doesn't snow, where it doesn't freeze, that's just ridiculous to me.
Well, you know what? We've had a team in Phoenix for however long. I mean, now that team I hope does move eventually back to either Quebec City or
right. For that matter.
Actually, I'd like to see him in Houston.
It's insane for Tampa to have a team. Yeah, Houston. I'm old enough that I used to go see the Arrows when I was a kid.
Yeah, WHA.
The AHL team. Houston's a good sports crowd. When Yao Ming was playing for the Rockets, like Houston welcomed that guy with open arms. It was amazing. He was like, jerseys were selling everywhere. Everybody wanted Yao to come to their events, stuff like that. They're like, man, come on in. Yeah. And even when James Harden was there, they were still relatively good. Now they're terrible, and I don't care about the NBA anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a really big fan of the NBA either. I really haven't watched an NBA Finals game since Barkley versus Jordan.
It's the worst of the big fours.
Yeah. To me, I love college basketball. I love watching college basketball.
Oh, March Madness is the best.
Can't watch NBA.
Right.
Because it really is like going into the season, although this season's been kind of a surprise for the NBA, but generally, going into the season who is going to be in the finals. Like,
but
it's
you
almost
know who's going to be in the tournaments, but you don't know which team's going to blow up in the tournament, and that's what's awesome about March Madness.
Well, yeah, March Madness.
In the NBA,
What's that?
You're saying in the NBA.
In the NBA, at the beginning of the season, who's going to be in the finals, or at least in the semifinals.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's no surprises.
Yeah, it's because they've allowed them to build super teams. So, like, Los Angeles has a super team.
But they're out.
Things do happen.
Which is great.
This year's been really cool because you got new teams like Phoenix and
Milwaukee,
Utah, and Milwaukee, and they're coming up. But it's
the fact that we can't say the Greek Freak anymore about what's his name from Milwaukee,
Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah,
because that's a great nickname.
Yeah,
people are too touchy.
Yeah, they are.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I think I need to go stuff a butt.
Love on that butt. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stuff a butt in the oven. So.
Right.
Which sounds really good, especially coming up with this music we'll have here in a second.
All right. Well, that's a good plan. It's always great to see you guys.
Yeah. See you guys next week
Yes.
at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Political Deep Dive After Dark. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Emily and Dan, for joining, and Care Bear. And we'll see you all. Where's that? There it is. I'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.